Hello everyone and welcome to Azam Sharp Weekly. And in this video we'll be looking at iOS 16 and SwiftUI Charts. If you ever wanted to create bar graph, line graph, point graphs, or these kind of charts, then the good news is that in iOS 16 you can use the Charts API. Now, there's a lot to say about the Charts API, so I'm just going to go ahead and begin with this introductory video, and then after that we will look into, in the future we'll look into more complicated things related to the Charts API. So in order to use the Charts API, the first thing you need to do is import charts. Okay, great. The next thing is we need to create some sort of a data that we can use to create these kind of charts, or on which the charts is going to work. So we're just starting out. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a struct for an account. All right, and this will be kind of like a bank account kind of thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I will say this will have a balance, and then we can have different kinds of accounts. So let's go ahead and create an account type, which is of a type account type. And I also want it to be identifiable, so I can loop over it in my for each, so I can go ahead and make sure it's identifiable. Great. Now we don't really have anything called account type, and that can be an enum. So let's go ahead and add that enum right here. So there we go. And now we have the account structure and also account type enum. And we can create a graph or a chart, a bar chart, based on the different accounts. The first thing we need to do is to create different kind of accounts. So I'm just going to hard code it over here. There we go. We have different kind of accounts over here. You can see. Okay. We have balance, we have checking account and all those things. The balance, we can fix this part, I guess. We can just move this a little bit differently. There we go. So that it accommodates that the balance comes after the account type. Not a big deal. And let's go ahead and change some parts of it so that we have different kind of values over here. So now if I want to create a particular chart, I can just go through these accounts and create the chart. So instead of the text control or the text view, we can simply go ahead and start using the chart view. And now I can go ahead and go through my accounts. For each of the account, I can use the bar mark. So you can see that this will allow us to create a bar chart. You also have like a point mark as well as a line mark. And the good thing about these things is that all of them, the point, the line, and the bar, they all uses the same signature. So you can simply replace the bar mark with a line mark and it will work. All right. Now, bar mark works just like a bar chart. So this means that you need to provide the X value and the Y value. And for each of the values, you can see that we will use dot value. You will have to provide the label. So on the X-axis, the horizontal axis, I'm just going to say the label will be account type. And what will be the value of those things? So it will be account type raw value. Just kind of like a label, which means the account types will be like checking, savings, and retirement. And the Y is the actual value that you're plotting. So this will be the actual balance in the account, which we can get from account.balance. And you can see that once we do that, it actually allows us to create, and how easily able to create these things. All right, so you can see that right over here, we're using the account type, and here are the account types, savings, retirement, and all that stuff. And all of these different values, like the account balance, is right here. That is what the graph is being constructed on. Now, if I go ahead and change the value, let's say instead of checking account, we have 14,500 instead of 4,500, you can see the graph kind of goes up. All right, same thing with over here. If it is 800, then relatively it's a little bit shorter and the other part will be shorter than the other one. All right. So there we go. I mean, it's actually pretty cool, pretty easy to create these kind of graphs, as you can see. Now, one of the other things you can do with these graphs is, first of all of them are kind of like on the same color, right? I mean, they're all blue by default. You can use something called, on the bar mark, you can use something called a foreground style. And foreground style can be by value, meaning that based on the value, we can actually, change the foreground style. Now, let's see that if we can actually change the foreground style based on the account type. So we will simply say account.accountType.drawValue. All right. And let's see if it actually goes. There we go. Now it is assigning these colors, all of them kind of like on its own basis randomly. So it's just assigning these colors, like blue for checking, green for savings, and then the orange for retirement. And you can also see right at the bottom, it's creating that legend. You can have a little bit more padding so that you can actually read the legend correctly. And you will see that now it's much better. There we go. All right, so how easy it is to create these kind of graphs. Now, sometimes you want to create graphs which are, categories within other categories. All right, so let's say that if we are creating a graph based on the expense type, how would we do that? So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so instead of creating the graph on the accounts, what about if we create the graphs a little bit differently and we create our graphs based on the expenses of the user, and each expense can have an expense type, and that expense type can even have further nested expense types. So let's go ahead and see different ways of creating the same thing. All right, so for this part, I'm going to go ahead. I already have the backup code for that in the backup file. So that means you can utilize that, and I will update that, all of the code, so you can use that. For now, we're just going to go ahead and remove these things. So don't worry about it. You already have the code, which you can utilize. Okay, so we'll get back to the normal text view over here, and which will simply say hello. Okay, and that will be our starting point again. Okay, so now what we're saying is that we should create a struct for an expense. So I'm just going to go ahead and say expense. Again, I will mark this as identifiable because in the for each, I will have to loop through it. And then we have UUID. Great. The expense will also have an amount of the expense that you're doing. And it will also have the expense type, which is expense type. We don't really have anything called expense type, so that is something we will have to create. So let's go ahead and create that. Now this is where kind of like a little bit of a fun starts, because the expense type can be entertainment and expense type can be travel. But even in the entertainment, there are multiple type of expense types like movies and music. So we can go ahead and pass in the entertainment type. Entertainment type. And for travel, we can say travel type or travel expense type, whatever you want to call it. Now we will have to create a entertainment type and travel type. So there we go. You can see the entertainment type consists of the movies and music, and travel type consists of rental, airfare, and train. So this is how we have structured our application, that every expense will have an expense type, but even in the expense type you have entertainment and travel, and in entertainment and travel you have entertainment types and travel types, because travel and entertainment can be different. Now let's go ahead and create these expenses. So I'm just going to go ahead and hard code this, just like the accounts that we did last time. And you can see over here in the expenses, we have expense type for entertainment, and that is for movies, travel type for airfare, and so on. We have all of these things going on. And now we can construct graph on these different expense types. So I'm just going to go ahead and say chart, just like before, for each expenses, and now I can use bar mark. For my value on the x-axis, I can simply say expense type. Okay, and now the question is, well, what are we trying to do? Expense type doesn't really have anything called title. So if we go to over here, expense type, you can see that we don't really have anything called title. If I want to put a title of expense type, which should be movies and music and all those things. All right, so if I go ahead and pass it over here like expense.expense-type.title, it's going to complain there is no title property. But this is our indication that we can go ahead and create a title property. So var title string, we will perform a switch if the case is entertainment, or entertainment type or travel type, let's say travel type. Then in those cases, we can return a travel type dot raw value, which basically means that it's going to return rental, airfare, or train. Other will be for, not travel type, sorry. Let's just go ahead and call this travel, because I think this is travel. There we go. And for entertainment, we have entertainment type, and we will return the entertainment type dot raw value. This means that we're going to get music and movies. So this should be fine. Now we will go on to our other axis, which is the y-axis, and the value over here will be the actual amount that we want to plot, and that is easy because expense contains the amount. All right, so that is something that we will be able to utilize. So let's go ahead and see and run this and see that if it can create different graphs for us or not. And you can see that now it is creating us graphs for which consist of movies, music, airfare, rental, train. And you can see for the airfare, it's actually pretty big because the airfare is actually quite expensive. We can also use the foreground style by over here. And for that, we can just go ahead and say, let's say expense color. It's not really color, I guess, expense title probably. And for the value, we can say expense.expense-type.title. So each of these things will be different colored based on whatever the color is given to us. All right. Pretty good. Now, in some situations, you just want to see one particular or two different bars, kind of like one for travel and one for entertainment. And you kind of like want to see the color portions, dividing the bar graph into multiple sections, indicating that what is airfare versus, rental versus something else. So you can always do that also. We will have to change a little bit in this case. All right. So what I'm going to do is, let's go to our title. So this part is done. That's good. If you want to create graphs based on all of these different subtypes, which we have already done, so that part is done actually, and you can see the result. Next, we're going to create a graph or a chart, kind of like this, and we will see that how we can divide it into the same chart. We can divide it into multiple sections, each indicating the portion. So if this is kind of like entertainment, this is going to say, oh, you watch a lot of movies. So this part is like movies, this part is like music, and this part can be something else. If this is for the travel, because we have only two categories, then this part can be like rental because you rented a lot, and this part can be airfare. So we're dividing like the same chart or the same bar chart into multiple sections. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to go back to our title, and if we are getting the title of the expense type, we want to get the title, the same title, meaning only two titles. So for travel, I'm just going to go ahead and return travel. And for entertainment, I just want to return entertainment. Entertainment. Okay, so now you can see that we have two different bar charts. We have entertainment and we have travel, but it's not really dividing it, right? I mean, it just says travel. It's not telling us that this part is for rental and maybe this part is for train and maybe the bottom part is for airfare. And the same thing with the entertainment. It's not telling us that this part is for movies and this part is for music. So it's not really telling us these things. So how can we do that? Well, we can go ahead and create another subcategory over here, another variable, which we can say category, which will be string. And we can perform a switch on the self, which basically means expense type. And you can see that we can check out if it's travel, then what kind of a travel type it is. If it's airfare, then returns airfare. If it's rental, return rental. If it's train, return train. And the same thing we do this for entertainment. Now, if we go over here into our application, it would be a good idea to kind of like arrange it in a nice way also. So I'm just going to go ahead and arrange it in a way that all of these things are kind of like grouped together, which is the important part. So you can see now all of the entertainment is kind of like grouped together. All of the travel is kind of like grouped together. And we'll see that if we even want to arrange it in a way that the train and airfare, all of those things, it would be nice if they're also grouped together. So like this. All right. And the same thing for the movies and music. So all of them are kind of like grouped together one by one in that particular order. Okay, train, rental, everything looks fine now. Okay, so now we will go and we will say expense.expense type.title, which means that the title of the expense, which is entertainment and travel, that's perfectly fine. And the graph is based on the amount, that is also fine. But the foreground style, we will say that it will be based on the category. So let's go ahead and add that. And what this will do is now you can see that the same particular graph is divided into multiple sections. You can see that the entertainment, and we can add a little bit of a padding if you want. Here we go. The entertainment consists of two different sections in the same graph, where the bigger section is for movies, because the green color over here resembles the movies. And the airfare is the red section over here, which is actually pretty big because airfare over here is actually, much bigger expense as compared to train, which is a very small expense, this one. So you can also create these kind of graphs in using the bar chart or the charts API in SwiftUI. So you can see that it's very, very helpful that even with like small bit of changes, you can completely change your graph. Now, the same bar mark, you can use line mark, point mark, and all those, and all of them have the same exact signature. So I can say line mark, but now obviously for line mark, I will have to arrange a little bit differently the data. So this is a line graph, and I believe there's another one is point mark, which is simply going to add some points to it. Let's see. All right, so everything kind of works as you will expect it to work, but this graph looks much nicer with just the bar mark, the bar chart. There we go. All right, so there you have it. This is kind of like an introduction to the chart control or the charts API in SwiftUI. We're going to dig a little bit more deeper. We're going to kind of like integrate it with the API, get the data from the API and display it in the chart, which is, I think, a very common operation. We're going to do that in the future, but hopefully all of these things are going to allow you to understand that how powerful the SwiftUI Charts API is in iOS 16 and SwiftUI. So hope you have enjoyed it. If you like this video and want to support my channel, then the best way would be to check out my courses on Udemy. You can see that I have a lot of different courses on Udemy about SwiftUI, augmented reality, Combine, MVVM design pattern, even core data, RX Swift, Swift itself, the Swift cookbook, Node.js, one of the highest rated courses for Node.js also, Swift concurrency, and many, many more. So I really hope that you check out the courses. The link to purchase the courses is right there in the YouTube description, so don't miss it out. And that will take you to my website and where you can purchase the courses at the best price. Thank you so much and hope that you enjoy all of these courses.